Intervals are the fundamental blocks to create music, and they are extremely important to understand music theory. You could say they are kind of the backbone of music. Let's get started. Hello guys and welcome to the channel. My name is Andres and this is the second video in the Music Theory series playlist. If you want to watch the other videos in the playlist, you can click here. Please remember that this series is focused on the theory part. In the future, I will be posting videos where we focus on the applied part of the theory. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload those videos too. In my opinion, the easiest way to explain an interval is just to see it as a regular distance. An interval is the distance between whatever two notes you choose. In the previous video, we talked about how there are 12 notes in an octave, 13 if you include the octave of your starting note. This means that there are 12 possible steps or jumps you could make that would take us to the same starting note but an octave higher. Each of these individual jumps is called a half step. A half step is the smallest jump we can make between two notes. Two half steps are called a whole step. For example, between C and C sharp, we have a half step. Between A and G, a whole step. And between E and G, 1.5 steps. Please keep in mind that defining a starting point to measure the jumps is very important. If you say that a note is a half step higher, you have to give a reference point. This might seem like something quite obvious, but it will be very important in the next part of this video and in future videos, so just please keep it in mind. Each of these steps has a name. We name them starting from whatever note you choose in the following way. So we have a starting point and then we take the first jump. That first step we call a minor second. If we take two steps from that starting point, that jump we would call a major second. The third one, a minor third, the fourth one, a major third, and so on and so forth, as you can see on the screen. You can pause the video if you want to take a closer look. I've also included a PDF in the video description with this interval so you can either save it or print it and keep it with your learning material. This table will be extremely useful for future videos, so I would highly recommend you to have it somewhere there saved. Also, I know that these names, they might look a little bit confusing now, so let's take a look at some examples. Starting on C, if we take 4 steps, this means 4 half steps or 2 whole steps, we land on the note E. According to our table, we can see that 4 half steps correspond to a major third. If we go back to the C and then go from the C to the G, we have 7 half steps. We jumped a total of 7 times. This interval would be a perfect fifth. If we start on an E and go up to a B, we also have 7 half steps. We jump the same 7 times as from the C to the G. Therefore, the interval between an E and a B is also a perfect fifth. This is very important. Intervals don't care which note you choose to start counting. They just care about the number of steps you move from wherever starting point you chose. It doesn't matter if you start on a C, F sharp, or A flat. If you move 3 half steps, that distance is called a minor third. Another way to picture this concept is with a ruler. If you're measuring the length of this post-it note, for example, you could measure from 0 to 3 inches. Therefore, the length would be 3 inches. But you could also start your measurement at the 2-inch mark, which then would end on the 5-inch mark. You still have the same 3 inches, and it is exactly the same with musical notes. It doesn't matter what your starting and ending points are. What matters is the distance between those 2 points. If we go back to the table, you can see that there are minor, major, perfect, augmented, and diminished intervals. The reason behind these names is outside the scope of this video and for most practical uses, irrelevant. What's important is that you are familiar with these names and which names are assigned to which intervals. We use minor and major to describe seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Perfect for the 4th and the 5th, and augmented and diminished also for the 4th and 5th, respectively. Here I want to highlight something very important. these names will depend on the context in which an interval is found. So don't be surprised if one day you hear something like a diminished seventh. As we move forward in the series, we will see examples of these situations. There are two types of changes or alterations that we can make to an interval. We can either diminish it or augment it. Diminishing an interval means lowering its pitch by a half step, while augmenting it means increasing its pitch by a half step. You can augment or diminish any given interval, and that has nothing to do with the names on the table, that we have an augmented fourth and a diminished fifth. These two cases, they're quite peculiar because we use them for several things in music theory, so we call this interval specifically augmented fourth or diminished fifth. But I could also take, for example, a major seventh, and I could diminish a major seventh. That just means that I'm taking that interval and I'm bringing it a half step down. I'm reducing its pitch. I'm just closing that gap. And by that, I mean diminish. I could also augment it, and that would be the opposite. This is again a situation where similar words are used to describe kind of different things. So please don't get your head too wrapped up around this. We're going to take a closer look in future videos. The most important thing that I want you to take from this video is that an interval is simply a distance between notes, and that a major, minor, diminished, or augmented interval will be major, minor, augmented, or diminished regardless of where we set our starting point, as long as the distance between that reference note, our starting point, and the end remains the same. In the next video, we will be using the concept of intervals to build scales, so don't miss it. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and share it. And if you liked it a lot and you want to support what I'm doing here, you can do so using the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.